I was standing in the corner of the hotel ballroom in Chicago, nursing a glass of cheap champagne, when my father said the words that would end our relationship forever. My brother Ethan's college graduation party was in full swing, 200 guests, open bar, live band, speeches from proud parents about their brilliant son who'd just earned his bachelor's degree in marketing from Illinois State. I'd driven 4 hours from Milwaukee to be there. Taken the day off work. Bought an expensive gift. Showed up with a smile despite knowing I'd be invisible for most of the evening. Because that's what I always did. I showed up for Ethan's milestones even though he'd never shown up for mine. My father was 3 drinks in, holding court with his business partners, when I overheard him say it. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but I was standing close enough that his voice carried. Yeah, Ethan's going places. Really going places. Not like my daughter, Naomi. She peaked in high school. Class president, valedictorian, all that. But nothing since then. Works some office job, never married, lives alone. It's sad, really. All that potential and she just stopped trying. I felt the champagne glass slip slightly in my hand. Caught it before it fell. And stood very still as my father, the man who was supposed to be proud of me, who was supposed to know me, told a room full of people that I'd peaked at 18 and given up on life. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that at that exact moment, 1,247 miles away in Austin, Texas, my TED Talk was being filmed. The one I'd been invited to give 3 months ago. The one about building tech companies from nothing. The one that would be uploaded to YouTube in 2 weeks and get 2.3 million views in the first month. My name is Naomi Chen, and if you're watching this, stay with me. Because the family that dismissed me as a high school has-been was about to discover I'd been building an empire they knew nothing about. And when they found out, when my TED Talk went viral and exposed exactly how wrong they'd been, they'd learned that you can't claim credit for success you spent years dismissing. Let me take you back so you understand the context. I'm the oldest of 2 children in a Chinese-American family from the Chicago suburbs. My parents, Michael and Linda Chen, immigrated from Taiwan in their 20s, built successful careers, my father in finance, my mother in real estate, and raised us with high expectations and very specific definitions of success. When I was growing up, I was the golden child. Perfect grades, student council, debate team, varsity tennis. I got into Northwestern on a full scholarship. My parents threw a party, invited everyone they knew, bragged about their brilliant daughter who'd gotten into a top 10 university. Then I made a choice that changed everything. After my sophomore year at Northwestern, I dropped out to join a tech startup. Not because I was failing, my GPA was 3.9, but because I'd been offered a founding engineer position at a company that would eventually become a unicorn. I saw the opportunity. I took it. My parents were devastated. Ashamed. They saw it as throwing away my future for a risky gamble. They stopped bragging about me. Stopped mentioning me at family gatherings. Told people I was taking a break from school to figure things out. Meanwhile, Ethan, 5 years younger than me, became the new focus. He was more conventional, easier to understand. He went to a state school, got decent grades, didn't make waves. And because he was following the expected path, he got all the praise, all the attention, all the celebration. I didn't just drop out of Northwestern. I spent the next 12 years building. That startup I joined? It got acquired for $340 million when I was 25. My equity payout was $4.2 million. I invested it carefully, started consulting, eventually founded my own company, a SaaS platform for small businesses that now has 12,000 clients and generates $8 million in annual revenue. But I never told my family any of this. Because every time I tried to share my success early on, they'd minimized it. That's nice, but when are you going back to finish your degree? That sounds risky, Naomi. You should get a stable job. Ethan's doing so well in his business classes. You should take notes from him. So I stopped sharing. Stopped trying to prove myself. Just quietly built my life, my company, my success, while they assumed I was stagnating in mediocrity. And now, standing at Ethan's graduation party, listening to my father tell strangers I'd peaked in high school and never amounted to anything, I felt something inside me crystallize. I wasn't angry. I was done. Done trying to earn recognition from people who decided 12 years ago that I was a failure. I set down my champagne glass, walked over to where my father was standing, and interrupted his conversation. "Dad, can I talk to you for a second?" He looked annoyed at being interrupted. "Naomi, I'm in the middle of." "I heard what you said. About me peaking in high school. About me working some office job and stopping trying." His face went slightly red. "I was just making conversation. You were telling your colleagues that your daughter is a disappointment. In a room full of people. At a family event. Do you have any idea what I actually do for work? You're in tech or something, right? Some startup? I own a software company that does $8 million in annual revenue. I have 45 employees. I've been invited to speak at conferences, been featured in Forbes, and 3 weeks ago, I was invited to give a TED Talk. Which I did. Yesterday. In Austin. While you were planning this party for Ethan. The people around us had gone quiet, listening. My father stared at me. "You, what?" "I've spent 12 years building a successful business. I've made more money than you and Mom combined. I've achieved things you can't even comprehend because you stopped paying attention the moment I didn't follow your script. You think I peaked in high school? I've been climbing ever since. You just never bothered to look up." My mother appeared, sensing tension. "Naomi, what's going on?" "Dad just told a room full of people that I peaked in high school and worked some office job. So I'm correcting the record. And then I'm leaving. Because I'm done showing up for family events where I'm treated like a failure." "Naomi, don't be dramatic," my mother said quickly. "Your father didn't mean. He meant exactly what he said. And I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt. I'm done being invisible at family gatherings while Ethan gets celebrated for doing the bare minimum. I'm done trying to earn respect from people who decided 12 years ago that I'd throw my life away." I turned to leave. My father grabbed my arm. "Naomi, wait. You can't just walk out on your brother's graduation party." "Watch me," I said, pulling my arm free. "Ethan won't even notice I'm gone. He never does." I walked out of that ballroom, got in my car, and drove back to Milwaukee. And as I drove, I made a decision. I wasn't going to try to prove myself to them anymore. I wasn't going to send them articles about my company or updates about my success. I was just going to let the world do the talking. And when my TED Talk went live in 2 weeks, when it inevitably found its way to them through mutual connections or social media, they'd realize exactly what they'd missed. My TED Talk was uploaded to YouTube on a Tuesday, 2 weeks after Ethan's graduation party. I'd titled it, "From Dropout to Founder: Why Unconventional Paths Create Breakthrough Success." In it, I talked about leaving Northwestern, joining that first startup, the lessons I'd learned building my own company, and why the traditional definition of success was outdated. By Thursday, it had 500,000 views. By Saturday, January 2nd, million. By the following Tuesday, February 3rd, million and climbing. It was being shared on LinkedIn, Twitter, featured in entrepreneurship newsletters, discussed on business podcasts. My inbox exploded with speaking invitations, media requests, potential investors wanting meetings. And then my phone started ringing. First, my cousin Jennifer. "Naomi, oh my God, I just saw your TED Talk. I had no idea you'd done all this. Why didn't you ever tell us?" Then my aunt, "Your mother just called me crying. She said she had no idea you were so successful. Is this real?" Then Ethan, "Ness, what the hell? You gave a TED Talk. Mom and Dad are losing their minds. Why didn't you tell us?" I didn't answer any of them. Just let the calls go to voicemail. Because the answer to, "Why didn't you tell us?" was simple. I had tried. For years. And they dismissed every achievement, minimized every success, compared me unfavorably to Ethan's conventional path until I'd given up trying to make them see me. 3 days after the TED Talk went viral, my parents showed up at my apartment in Milwaukee. I watched them through the doorbell camera, debating whether to answer. Finally, I opened the door. "We need to talk," my father said, looking older than I remembered. "Okay. Talk." They came inside. Sat on my couch uncomfortably, looking around at my apartment like they were seeing it for the first time, which, in a way, they were. They'd never visited me in Milwaukee. Never asked to see where I lived, how I'd built my life. "We saw your TED Talk," my mother said quietly. "Everyone we know has sent it to us. Our friends, our colleagues, people from church. Everyone's asking why we never mentioned our daughter was so successful." "Because you didn't know," I said simply. "You didn't know because you never asked. You decided 12 years ago that dropping out of Northwestern was a failure, and you never looked past that decision." "That's not fair," my father said. "We were concerned about your future." "For 12 years? Dad, you told a room full of people at Ethan's graduation that I peaked in high school. That I worked some office job and stopped trying. You didn't know what I did for work because you never asked. You didn't know about my company because you weren't interested. You didn't know about the TED Talk because I stopped trying to share my life with people who didn't value it. We're your parents," my mother said, tears in her eyes. "We've always valued you." "No, you haven't. You valued the version of me that fit your expectations. The Northwestern student. The conventional success story. When I became something different, you stopped seeing me. You wrote me off as a disappointment and transferred all your attention to Ethan because he was easier to understand and celebrate." "That's not true," my father protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "It is true. And you know it is. When's the last time you attended one of my events? When's the last time you asked about my work? When's the last time you celebrated one of my achievements the way you celebrate Ethan's?" They were silent. "I gave you 12 years to notice what I was building. 12 years to ask questions, to show interest, to acknowledge that maybe I knew what I was doing. You didn't. You just kept comparing me to Ethan, kept talking about how he was on track and I was lost. And now that the world is telling you I'm successful, now you want to claim that pride you never felt. We're proud of you, Naomi," my mother said. "You're proud of the TED Talk with 2 million views. You're proud of the Forbes feature and the speaking invitations. You're proud of the version of success that's public enough for you to brag about. But you weren't proud of the years I spent building that success. You weren't proud when it was hard and uncertain and I needed support. You were ashamed. We made mistakes," my father admitted. "We should have supported you better. We should have tried to understand what you were doing instead of dismissing it." "Yes," I agreed. "You should have. But you didn't. And now I've built a life you have no part in. I have friends, colleagues, a community of people who believed in me when you didn't. People who celebrated my wins and supported me through failures. People who see me. And I don't need your pride now that it's convenient to give it." "So what are you saying?" my mother asked. "That we can't be part of your life?" "I'm saying I don't know if I want you to be. Because it hurts too much to show up for family events where I'm treated like a failure. It hurts to hear my father tell strangers I peaked in high school. It hurts to watch Ethan get celebrated for mediocrity while my actual achievements are ignored. And I don't know if I want to subject myself to that anymore just because we share DNA." They stayed for another hour. We talked in circles. They apologized, made promises to do better, asked for another chance. And I told them the truth, I'd think about it. But I wouldn't make any promises. Because trust, once broken this completely, doesn't get rebuilt with a single conversation. After they left, I sat in my apartment and felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. Not because I'd won some argument or proven them wrong. But because I'd finally said out loud what I'd been feeling for over a decade. That I deserved better. That their treatment of me was unacceptable. That I didn't have to keep showing up for people who made me feel invisible. Over the next month, my TED Talk continued to spread. It was featured on the TED homepage. Media outlets started reaching out. Inc. magazine wanted a profile, a business podcast wanted an interview, a literary agent wanted to discuss a book deal. My company got inquiries from potential clients who'd seen the talk. My professional life exploded in ways I'd never anticipated. And my family watched from the sidelines, finally seeing what they'd been missing all along. They reached out periodically, my mother with articles about me she'd seen, my father with awkward attempts at showing interest in my work, Ethan with messages that oscillated between, "I'm proud of you," and, "Why didn't you ever tell me this stuff?" I responded minimally. Not out of spite, but out of self-protection. Because every interaction with them reminded me of all the years they'd made me feel small. All the times I'd tried to share my success and been met with dismissal. All the family events where I'd been invisible while Ethan was celebrated. 6 months after the TED Talk went viral, I was invited to keynote a major tech conference in San Francisco. The invitation came with a $50,000 speaking fee and the kind of professional prestige that would have made 20-year-old me weep with joy. I flew to San Francisco, delivered the keynote to 2,000 people, and received a standing ovation. Afterward, networking in the conference hall, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see, Ethan. "Hey, Ness," he said, looking uncomfortable. "I heard you were speaking. I wanted to come see it. I bought a ticket." You came to my keynote?" "Yeah. It was incredible. You were incredible. And I realized while watching you that I've never done that before. Come to one of your things. Supported your work. I've always just expected you to show up for mine." I was quiet, processing. "I'm sorry," Ethan continued. "I'm sorry I took your support for granted. I'm sorry I never questioned why you stopped sharing stuff with us. I'm sorry I didn't defend you when Dad said that shit at my graduation. You deserved better. You deserve better now." "Yeah," I said simply. "I do. Can we? I don't know. Start over? I want to actually know you. Not the version Mom and Dad talk about, but the real you. The person who built all this." I looked at my younger brother, who was trying, in his own clumsy way, to bridge a gap I'd thought was uncrossable. And I realized something. I didn't need to hold on to anger to protect myself. I could forgive Ethan for being oblivious without giving him access to hurt me again. I could have a relationship with him on my terms. "Maybe," I said carefully. "But it has to be real, Ethan. It has to be genuine interest, not just showing up now that I'm publicly successful. Can you do that?" "I can try," he said. "That's all I can promise. But I want to try." We talked for an hour after the conference. Not about the past, but about the present. About what I was building, what he was doing in his marketing job, what our relationship could look like moving forward. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fully healed. But it was honest. And that was more than we'd had in over a decade. As for my parents, our relationship remained complicated. They attended a few of my events, made efforts to show interest in my company, sent articles and messages. But there was a distance now that hadn't existed before. A recognition that they'd fundamentally failed to see me for who I was, and that failure had cost them years of being part of my journey. The literary agent who'd reached out after my TED Talk went viral worked with me for 6 months on a book proposal. Unconventional success. Building a tech empire without the degree, sold to a major publisher for a 6-figure advance. When the news broke in Publishers Weekly, my mother called me crying. "Naomi, a book? You're writing a book? Why didn't you tell us?" "Because telling you things has never resulted in support, Mom. It's resulted in concern, criticism, or comparison to Ethan. So I stopped telling you things. I just did them quietly and let you find out later. That's not fair. We're your parents. We deserve to know what's happening in your life." "Deserve?" I repeated slowly. "Mom, do you know how many times I tried to share my wins with you over the past 12 years? How many times I mentioned a new client, a funding round, a speaking opportunity, only to have you change the subject or ask when I was going back to school. You didn't deserve to know what was happening in my life. You had to earn that privilege by showing actual interest. And you didn't. She was quiet for a long moment. Your father and I are seeing a therapist. A family therapist. She's helping us understand how we failed you. How we created a dynamic where Ethan could do no wrong and you could do no right. It's been painful to see, Naomi. Really painful. Good, I said without sympathy. It should be painful. You spent 12 years making me feel invisible. Making me feel like a disappointment. Do you have any idea what it's like to build something extraordinary and have your own parents not even notice? To hear your father tell strangers you peaked at 18 when you're actually thriving? I know. We know now. And we're trying to change. The therapist wants to do family sessions. Would you be willing to come? Not to forgive us immediately, but just to talk. To help us understand your perspective? I thought about it. I'll think about it. But Mom, understand something. Even if I come to therapy, even if we work through this, our relationship will never be what it was. You can't get back the years you ignored me. You can't undo the damage of dismissing my success. The best we can hope for is building something new. Something honest. But it won't look like a typical parent-child relationship. I understand, she said quietly. That's more than we deserve. The family therapy sessions started 3 months later. They were brutal. Hour-long conversations where I laid out, in excruciating detail, every time I'd felt invisible, dismissed, or compared unfavorably to Ethan. My parents sat there, sometimes crying, sometimes defensive, but mostly just listening as I unpacked 12 years of hurt. The therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, was unflinching. Michael, Linda, I need you to understand something. Naomi didn't owe you updates about her success. You owed her interest in her life. When a child stops sharing with their parents, it's because sharing has become painful. Naomi earned that sharing her achievements led to disappointment, either yours in her choices, or hers in your lack of engagement. So she stopped. That's a survival mechanism, not a character flaw. My father struggled the most with this. But I was her father. I was supposed to guide her. Tell her when I thought she was making mistakes. For how long? Dr. Kim challenged. At what point do you stop guiding and start trusting? Naomi was 20 when she left Northwestern. She's now 32. At what age would you have started believing she knew what she was doing? I don't know, my father admitted. The room went silent. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. Because apparently, my story resonated with hundreds of people who'd also been underestimated by their families. After the event, my parents approached me. That was hard to hear, my father said. Hearing you tell a room full of strangers that we failed you. That's because you did fail me, Dad. And I'm not going to lie about it to protect your reputation. You told strangers I peaked in high school. I'm telling strangers the truth about how you treated me. Fair trade. He nodded slowly. Fair trade, he agreed. 9 months after that graduation party confrontation, Ethan called me with unexpected news. Ness, I'm getting married. And I want you to be in the wedding. Not just attend, I want you as a groomsperson. Will you do it? Why? I asked carefully. Because you're my sister. Because I've spent the past year actually getting to know you, and I like who you are. Because I want the people who matter to me standing up there, and you matter. Is that reason enough? Yeah, I said, surprised by the emotion in my throat. That's reason enough. His wedding was small, just 70 people, but it was the first family event where I felt genuinely seen. Ethan introduced me to his friends not as my sister who dropped out of college, but as my sister who founded a tech company and gave a TED Talk that went viral. My parents sat with other family members and, for the first time I could remember, didn't compare us. Didn't make comments about who was more successful or on a better path. Just celebrated Ethan's day without diminishing mine. At the reception, my father asked me to dance. As we moved awkwardly around the floor, neither of us were natural dancers, he said, "I read your book. All of it. And Naomi, I need you to know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for every time I dismissed what you were building. I'm sorry I told people you peaked in high school. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to prove yourself to me when I should have been proving to you that I was worthy of being your father. Dad. Let me finish. I was wrong. About everything. About you leaving Northwestern being a mistake. About your path being wrong. About comparing you to Ethan. I was wrong, and I let my wrongness cost me 12 years of knowing my daughter. I can't get those years back. But I want whatever years we have left to be different. I want to be the father you deserved all along. Can you give me that chance?" I looked at him, this man who'd hurt me so deeply, who was now genuinely trying to change, and I made a choice. "I can try," I said. "But Dad, it has to be real. It has to be consistent. You can't just show up when it's convenient or when my success is public enough to brag about. You have to show up for the boring stuff, the difficult stuff, the stuff that doesn't come with applause." "I will," he promised. "I'll keep showing up until you believe me." And slowly, over the next year, he did. They both did. My parents started attending my speaking events, not for the prestige but to hear what I was working on. Started asking questions about my company, my clients, my goals. Started treating my success as real instead of as some lucky accident. Did it erase 12 years of pain? No. Did it fully rebuild trust? Not yet. But it was something. It was effort. It was genuine change backed by consistent action. And that was more than I'd had before. My name is Naomi Chen. My father told a room full of people I peaked in high school and never amounted to anything. 2 weeks later, my TED Talk went viral with 2.3 million views, my book became a bestseller, and the world saw what my family had been missing for over a decade, that the daughter they dismissed as a failure had been succeeding brilliantly all along. The people who underestimate you don't get to celebrate you. They don't get to claim credit for success they spent years dismissing. They either do the hard work of acknowledging their mistakes and genuinely changing, or they watch from the sidelines as you thrive without them. My family chose to do the work. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. And while our relationship will never be what it could have been if they'd supported me from the start, it's becoming something honest. Something real. Something built on mutual respect instead of conditional acceptance. I don't need their validation anymore. I built my empire without it. But having it now, earned through their genuine effort to change, makes the success taste a little sweeter. Not because it proves I was right, I always knew I was. But because it proves people can grow. Even when they've spent years being wrong, they can choose to be better. And that's a lesson worth more than any TED Talk view count.